Just how good is Daniel Freitag? How much is he going to play this year? I'm really excited to have Coach Gauthier on to break down the prize freshman point guard for Greg Gard and the University of Wisconsin Badgers basketball team.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Badger fans, what is good? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in, for helping us build this community, to being a part of what we're doing here. If you're an everydayer, I appreciate y'all so much wherever you listen to the show. Special one today, but first, it is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. FanDuel this summer is hooking up all new customers, all of their customers, with the bonus every day booster bonus. That's right, every single day, something for everyone, all summer long, over at FanDuel.com to get started. And it's been a minute, man. I'm excited to welcome back great friend of the show, Coach Gauthier, Scott Gauthier, back on the show. And we're kind of walking through the players. We've talked to the transfer guys. I want to start with Daniel Freitag. We haven't had a chance, you and I, on the show to break it down. Big time 2024 point guard recruit, the highest point guard recruit in the Greg Gard era, coming out of Breck High School in Minnesota. Coach, what do you see when you see him on film?
Hey, Ryan, it's great to be back with you. It's been a while. Freitag, all the people we've discussed and all the conversation we had, I got to admit, I am super excited about Freitag and his potential. Just, watching film on him and breaking them down and stuff. I'm super excited just from the fact he is different. We've talked recruiting over the last year or so, and where's Wisconsin going with it? And we talked about during the season, they didn't have a lot of difference makers or athletes. And Freitag is completely different. He brings flair, excitement, 3-level scorer. He brings explosiveness, just something the Badgers really have been missing, I feel, the past couple of seasons. We talk about Chucky, and Chucky's really good and solid and stuff, but he doesn't have that explosiveness, that level of athleticism that I think Freitag brings to the table. And like I said, I'm just super excited to see what he has in store for this upcoming year.
Yeah, you hit on something offensively that I think is interesting. The 3-level score in high school, like, he's so good. He got to the rim basically when he wanted to. Even at some of the AAU stuff you watch him at, he's getting to the rim when he wants to. But you still see the ability to pull up from 15. You see the ability off the bounce. To me, that shows that's almost the most exciting part of this, because a lot of kids are so talented at that age, athletic at that age, that they don't have to develop it. The fact that he has, I think, speaks to the work ethic that's under the hood there.
Yeah, and that's a great point. One of my question marks in watching him, and granted, I haven't got to break down his full game films in high school and stuff like that, is like, what's his consistency as a three-point shooter? But I think it goes to your point, Ryan, is like, when you watch him, he's so elite and good with his first step and breaking people off the bounce, especially on the high school level. Like, he didn't really have to do that because he could just beat people. Like, so if you're really good at one thing, why try to do something when, you can just beat him off with his first step as an explosive. Now, with his shooting and, like you said, his mid-range games and stuff, I think why I'm so excited, and Badger fans should be excited for him, is it's just he's got really good form and he's smooth. Everything about his game is smooth, whether it's off the bounce, getting to the rim, getting to the paint, finishing through contact, whether it's getting by the initial defender, elevating to a shot from mid-range, and then his, whether it's his 3 off the bounce or his 3 off the catch and shoot. It's nice, it's compact. He's just got a smoothness to his game. So on that 3-level scoring, I mean, you'll see it as you watch him and stuff. He's just different with that flair and that level of smoothness and athleticism that, legitimately, I know it's Big Ten and it's a step up, but I really think he's a 3-level threat, as a freshman in the Big Ten.
Let me ask you this, because you do this for a living, coaching, recruiting, evaluating film, watching film. For a point guard, where would you rank his athleticism at the high school level from average to elite? Where is he on that scale for a guard?
I would say he's probably not elite because when we're talking elite, we're talking, lottery NBA type guys or, talking Duke to UConn type levels. He wasn't quite recruited on that level. Obviously, he was recruited by Power 5, top 15 programs. So I think he's a tier below that from an elite level, but he's definitely a tier above average or whatever from an athleticism standpoint. Because if you watch him, just watching his film or just watch him, it's that burst. That burst to break somebody off, and then he has elite vision, and he does it with a little bit of flair. But at the game, he makes the game look easy. And typically when guys make the game look easy, it's because that they had that extra level athleticism that makes the game look a lot easier than it really is.
No, that's a really good point you just hit on because it's the same with the elite receivers, elite corners, these guys that create great space. It's because they're just faster. They're just more athletically built. And Freitag has some of that. The other thing, and you mentioned this earlier, I want to loop back to it, the smoothness in his game. You watch highlights, getting to the rim, getting to the rack. He has a really unique ability to finish left, right. He'll Euro step through. He'll finish under the rim. He has a floater game, which he's shown a couple times. He'll stop and pop. It actually feels like for his age, man, he's got a lot of tools in the tool chest.
Yeah, the more I watch him and stuff, and I knew he was really good, obviously being in the industry and being on the recruiting trail, I knew he was really good, but until I really sat down and watched him, I didn't realize how good he was in terms of being an athlete and a player. What I really like is his diversity in his game. And what I really love, we talk about him and his athleticism. Don't forget the fact, he had a Wisconsin offer from a football standpoint. He's a Division I level football athlete too. So that's a whole nother level of athleticism. He was a heck of a football player too. But, and I love multi-sport athletes, especially recruiting them, for our program and stuff. I love it, multi-sport athletes, because they just have a different level. It's a different skill set, but it's a level of competitiveness. And you can really see that with Freitag. Like, he has like the Davison type competitivism, that we're used to seeing as a Badger fan, but with a whole nother level of athletic ability and athleticism that Brad Davison, wasn't given that God-given ability. But just with Freitag having that multi-sport like Davison was, but it's just a different level of explosiveness to his game, first step, just super excited to watch. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, he really is, which at times last year, and this was not a bad Badger team, but at times last year, it honestly just didn't feel fun. Like, it felt like a grind. Even the wins, some of the losses were blowouts. And it just felt kind of tough to, listen, as a fan, I'm not trying, but to soldier through as a fan sometimes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, watching the Badgers, they just didn't have that pop or juice. When you're watching it on TV, like when you're watching elite athletes or really big time players, it's just, you see that juice, you see you see that pop factor. And the Badgers just really haven't had that pop factor. AJ Storr had it to some of his game, but you haven't seen it from a Badger player, especially with a guard or a guard that had the ball in his hands. Like Chucky didn't have that pop factor to him. And the guys they have, Max and those guys, really good, solid players, but just they lack that pop, that level, what you're talking about. If you sit back as a fan, as a coach, and it just draws your eyes to it. And that's why I'm excited about Freitag, because he brings that back to the Badger roster that, I believe in what you've alluded to it's kind of been missing lately.
Yeah. What are fair expectations for him as a freshman?
I hate to, because it's hard. I hate to put expectations on our freshmen that we bring in, and you're talking, low to mid-major, the level I'm at. you're talking big, Big Ten. Now it's Big Ten's part of basically the Big Two. So I hate to put it on there, but unfortunately for him, with Chucky leaving and stuff, he's going to have, if they want to have any sort of successful season where they're competing for a tournament bid or stuff, he's going to have to be big. He's going to have a big year. I think the expectation is they're probably, unfortunately, going to have to look for a little bit more scoring from him initially than you think. You would have loved with him with Chucky to kind of fit in where he could be more create for others, score in transition, get some steals, more athleticism, not per se put the pressure on him from a scoring standpoint, but they're going to need him to really elevate his game as a freshman because, we talked about with Hunter coming in and stuff. I don't think Hunter's a pure point guard. He's more of a scoring combo type point, and I think Freitag, the Badgers need him to be, he's more of that pure point guard. So, I hate to put expectations on him, but for the Badgers to have the type of season fans would want or to be on that cusp of being a tournament team, I think he's going to have a pretty solid contribution year, for him to be in that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need him, and he's going to have to play because Hunter, McGee, Klesman can pop over to a little bit of one. That's not enough in the Big Ten. It's just not enough. And Freitag brings you a little bit defensively from an athletic standpoint that I think can benefit the Badgers. There's going to be mistakes. He's a freshman, but I think they need him. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go back to talk to Xavier Amos. Maybe the highest upside of the transfer guys we brought in. I'm going to get Coach's opinion on that. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. And now a quick break for our friends of the show, new friends of the show over at Ibotta. Listen, summer's here. When you head to the beach, you need some flippy floppies. You need some sunscreen. You need some snacks, maybe a cooler to keep it all cold, beach towels, toys for the kids. The point is, sometimes you got to spend money on stuff. Why not get a little bit of coinola back? Why not get a little bit of cash back when you spend money on stuff? That's what Ibotta is here for. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn money back on the things you buy. Thousands of products, all sorts of retailers like Best Buy, Lowe's, Sephora, and more. You're going to spend the money anyway, right? So get a little bit of cash back with a free app that gives you cash back just for using it. Ibotta is incredible. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. Ibotta gives you cold, hard cash that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You simply add offers to the app, upload your receipt, and voila, money is yours. Head over to Ibotta right now. They're offering $5 for our listeners by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play Store or the App Store. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Today's episode is also brought to you by our new friends of the show, Factor Meals. If you're anything like me, I need to eat better. My wife says it. My buddy says it. My internal brain says it. I just struggle with it, right? Like prep time is too much. I don't really know how to cook. I want healthy, nutritious things that don't take a bunch of time. Anybody that's listened to the show remembers my story of trying to make burgers with sugar because I didn't really know how to do it. Factor Meals is incredible. You want healthy, nutritious, time-saving meals on budget-friendly options that save you prep time in the kitchen, that help promote a healthier lifestyle. That's what Factor Meals is here for. They are the best way to just get a little healthier, eat a little better, save a little time, and save some money. Right now, head over to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. You can use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's crazy savings. That's called LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box, 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. I want to talk Xavier Amos, who was the last of this group to commit. Big-time athlete. What are your thoughts on Xavier Amos from the offensive standpoint?
Yeah, Ryan, I got to admit, as I was studying him, watching him, and when I first was going back on Synergy and looking at his clips, I was really concerned because his last game wasn't his best. But as I dove deeper into it and I watched him, I started to feel better, and I started to say, okay, I see what the staff is seeing in him. And to your point, from an offensive standpoint specifically, it's just that size and length that he brings to the table. 6'8", 215. I wouldn't say he's a bouncy athlete, plus, he's probably a plus athlete or a little above average, but his athleticism's not going to wow you. But just his length and his shooting ability with that length is what separates him. If you watch him, he hit 43s on 104 attempts last year, 39% clip. But if you watch him shoot it, you would think he's even a better shooter. That it's just a smooth, clean, compact stroke. He looks natural shooting the ball. And being 6'8", 215, he almost looks like a wing type when his catch and shoot, his pick and pop ability. Offensively, that's really exciting. What also caught me off guard is when he's away from the basket on his face-up game and stuff, he has a really quick first step. It is explode, boom, he's right by the defender, and he has a really good crossover. So just from a 6'8", lanky body like he is, it really stood out to me off the bounce how quick that first step is, how he can beat. And initially I thought, okay, he's really left-hand dominant. You could tell when he beats defenders off the bounce, he's more comfortable going to his left. Obviously, it's his strong hand. But then as I watched him more, he was beating guys off the bounce. And then I really loved when he would catch baseline face up. He has a really quick rip drive first step to beat the defender. So I really saw from an offensive standpoint, just, we talked with Freitag about his smoothness to his game and stuff. Amos presents that same capability of smoothness, maybe with not the same level of athleticism or initial pop, but he just has a really smooth, refined offensive game, especially on the perimeter away from the basket.
That is really, really well said. And this is why we bring Coach on the show, to get everybody smarter. I love it. I want to highlight just a couple of things you brought up, because I agree with really a lot of what you're saying. The shooting is so legit. And I think this is the type of guy you want him shooting 5 or 6 threes a game. You want him on volume because the shot is so pure. And then when you look at the clips, it's shooting from beyond the arc. Like, he's stretching the defense. He's a foot or two behind. That's natural. That stretches the defense even more. And then that leads into that first step comment you make. People have to close out. And he does a really good job of recognizing that, ripping through, getting that first step. So it puts those bigger perimeter defenders in a bit of a bind, right? Do I close out? Then this guy's going to go by me. Do I give him a foot? But then he's going to bang it. It's really tough on the perimeter for the perimeter defenders to match up with him.
Absolutely. Ryan, and watching him, like you said, that it's a great point you made, being able to play, a step or two beyond the arc. And, the more I watch him, I'm sure you're going to hit this, like maybe some of his deficiencies or weaknesses, but I'm not so much sure how much the Badgers want or intend to have him inside the paint posting up, because he does lack physical strength and a physicality to his game, especially around the baskets. And I'm sure the Badgers are working on getting him stronger, playing off 2 feet and finishing through contact. But I just think, especially when, you already have the back to the basket game that they have already, I see him being on the perimeter, and then they can put him in the high post, but pick and pop. And if he has a mismatch, if he's guarding against a 4 or 5 guarding him, that's slower foot, just get him away from the basket and kind of just spread out and let him beat him off the bounce. I just think the versatility, I think him as a threat on the perimeter is way greater than I thought it was going to be in watching him in the film. And I'm not so much sure how much the Badgers want or plan on using him around the basket in the paint. Because I think it's, like you said, I think getting him out in space, picking and pop, stretching the floor, doing all kinds of other things with Crowell what they could do offensively, they could really play to his strengths away from the basket.
Well, let's talk on some of the concerns, and I think you hit on one of the ones I had. I worry about the physicality. I worry about in the Big Ten, you beat that guy off the bounce. I don't know if that's necessarily a thing, like you said, the Badgers are going to want all the time. And then you look at the free throw percentage, 65% last year. For as good of a shooter as he is, I was surprised to see that in the 60s. I thought it would be 72, 73, somewhere in that range. So I think that's where my biggest level concern is. He's not going to be a secondary playmaker for you. Like when he drives, he puts the head down and gets to the rim, which is fine. But then I don't know if he's physical enough in the Big Ten to consistently finish there.
Absolutely. My biggest concern, and like I said, when I first turned on the film and I was like, his assist to turnover ratio is extremely poor. He's 29 assists to 59 turnovers. So that's a -1 to 2 assist to turnover ratio, and just a general carelessness with valuing the basketball. He has a lot of really sloppy turnovers, whether somebody's physical with them or they put a hand on the ball, they rip it from him 50-50, or like you said, when he puts his head down trying to go to the lane, there's a looseness to his handles. So, and obviously with guard and the way the staff is, Wisconsin's notorious one of the, top programs in the country in terms of taking care of the basketball. So it's definitely something he's going to have to work and get better on his game, because that's one of the things that really stood out to me. And like you said, the lack of physicality and strength. He doesn't play with great leverage. I think part of it's his body type. He's 6'8", long and lanky. But, a lot of times when he gets bodied and the defense gets physical, he's kind of fading away, or he's looking for the ref to bail him out. And we all know how games are officiated in the Big Ten. It's going to be a substantial adjustment factor from him going from the MAC to the Big Ten. If he's struggling with leverage and physicality on the MAC level, the Big Ten and the way that they ref, they call a Big Ten game, that's going to be it's a concern, and it's going to be a major adjustment for him.
By our great friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the #1 source for all your sports betting needs, all your sports betting information. Major League Baseball is in full swing right now. I love baseball. I love sports. FanDuel's where I go. Official sportsbook of Major League Baseball, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Network, for a reason. Fast, easy, simple. It is a great time to get started with FanDuel. Plus, with football right around the corner, there's futures bets for college football, pro football, whatever you would like. It's over there at FanDuel.com. Again, please do it responsibly, but a great way to spice up your sports weekend, a great way to spice up your sports nights. Have some fun with futures, parlays, teasers, spreads in the easiest user interface you're ever going to find over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon, the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Major League Baseball, and of the Locked On Podcast Network. Head over there today, FanDuel.com. Let's flip it over to defense. Defensively, let's start with what do you like here with Amos in his game?
What I really like is his feet. We talked about his smoothness to his game, the ability, like you said, to pick and pop, be away from the basket, play beyond the three-point line. For those reasons, offensively, I think it really helps him defensively. Like, he has really good feet. Sometimes when you look at bigs, 4-5 type guys, one of the first things I look at when I'm evaluating a guy, are they heavy-footed or heavy-legged? He is very light on his feet. A lot of it's his frame, 6'8", long, lanky, but really good fluidity, especially in his hips and his feet. So, I think the ability for him to double or fire on a ball screen, to switch, to hard hedge, something, I think he adds an extra dimension, being able to just slide his feet and keep people in front. I think that's going to be a strength, something the Badgers can take advantage of. The other thing you've talked to, we've alluded to it in our conversations, and you've talked about it ever since they've signed him, is his ability to be a rim protector or a secondary shot blocker. Like, a lot of his blocks, he had 33 blocks last year on the year. a lot of them he wasn't the initial defender. So he had a really good feel whether he dropped or he was on the help side and going over and blocking a shot or deflecting a shot or getting a hand on it or at least affecting a shot, which the Badgers have not had that the past couple of years, especially from a defensive standpoint. Just that threat or that help of redirecting, altering, or blocking shots. I think that's something he can really bring to the table. Like we talked about, though, I think if you're asking him or the Badgers, if teams try to we talked about it, the fear of teams just throwing bigs at the Badgers and throwing it in the post and going at Steven and going at Amos and, others in the post, that's going to be a concern because he's going to struggle with brute strength and physicality in the paint, guarding one-on-one, trying to body people up.
Yeah, I'm very worried about that. I think the shot blocking thing is important. He's a lesser defender than Tyler Wall. Tyler Wall was a really good defender for the most part, outside of a random matchup against, I don't know, Illinois, for example. But Tyler Wall did really well last year. Amos is a downgrade defensively, in my opinion, but he does bring you shot blocking that Tyler Wall didn't. Like, he brings you that secondary shot blocking, coming across the paint, helping out. And for those 33 blocks, there's another, you can watch it on film. You can see some of the defensive clips when I was first breaking him down. He disrupts a lot of shots too that aren't blocks, but he's making it harder because he has defensive awareness and he is pretty light on his feet, like you mentioned. So I'm excited about that. But then let's get into that negative. Like, last year's team to me was soft on the interior. And I think you've lost some of the toughness with Tyler Wall. To me, that's almost the biggest worry I have on this team going forward. I mean, maybe it's the point guard position, but it's that and the toughness in the interior isn't just post defense, it's defensive rebounding. It's not getting torn apart on the glass, right? I think it's a major concern for this team.
Absolutely, Ryan. And you bring up a great point because one of the things I failed to mention, one of my concerns with him too, is you look at his statistics. He only had 34 offensive rebounds on the year, and he got six rebounds in total per game. That's not bad, but 6'8", you'd like to see a little more. I'd like to see him rebound out of his area more, go get more balls, especially with that size and that length. But to your point, that is my number one concern about the Badgers in the way, like losing Wall. I agree with you. He is a defensive downgrade from Wall, especially closer to the basket. Now, the one thing I would say, defensively away from the basket, I think he is an improvement from Wall because I think they'll be able to do more with Amos and ball screen coverages away from the basket because Tyler did struggle defensively against better athletes in space. But to your point, if teams want to just put the Badgers in a 15-foot box and just pound at them, even if Crowell, another year in the weight room, bigger, stronger, Nolan Winter, Amos, teams that just want to bully ball them, I don't see how any of those guys are going to hold up. I just don't know how the Badgers are going to fight against teams that want to just bludgeon them to death unless the Badgers, want to start going to double in the post and doing other things with their post defense. But that's not what Gard and the staff have done in his time here. So I don't really see them doing that. So, that bully ball factor, especially in the Big Ten, is a serious concern. And I don't know, just looking the way the roster is built and the skill set of the players you mentioned, and Amos particular, I don't know how they overcome that, to be honest.
Yeah, truthfully, they probably don't is the answer. And I hope they do. I hope maybe Winter puts on 30. He's stronger this offseason. Amos has already put on some weight, right? So he was 215. I think he's up into the 220s. That's great. I still think that's a weakness. Let me ask you this. Any concern? So Cameron Hunter came from a really bad program. It just is what it is. He didn't play last year. The year before, we watched some of the film. Like we think he can fit into the Big Ten and he can ball. That was a bad program. Northern Illinois was not a good MAC program last year. Any concern bringing in a couple transfers from programs that, quite frankly, weren't very good?
Great point on that, Ryan, because you and I have talked about it a lot. And one of the things I really look in players and we as a staff look in is winners. We want winners. They're just used to being held to a different standard, accountability, practice habits, and stuff. You make a great point because we talked about it with Hunter, and you make a great point about Amos because Northern Illinois has been down. The one thing I will say, Ryan, in looking at Amos and his background, he played at Whitney Young in Chicago. They won his senior year, they won a city championship, and they were state runner-up. So he did win at a high level in high school, which I think that accounts for something. You know, Whitney Young, great program, incredible coaching, high level of history, standards, toughness. I love recruiting guys from there. I love watching their programs. They play on national stage. So, yeah, it is a concern coming from Northern Illinois and their lack of success the past couple of years. But he did come from a highly successful high school program, and he won it at a big level at Whitney Young in Chicago.
That is a great point and great background. He is Coach Gauthier. As always, we are smarter and more insightful because he joins the show. We are very grateful and for your gracious time, Coach. Thank you so much. For everybody tuning in on Wisconsin, you know, we'll talk tomorrow. Go check out a different Locked On podcast over at Locked On Packers, Brewers, Bucks. Get all your Wisconsin in-state knowledge over at the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much on Wisconsin.